I spent Christmas night in my car, parked 2 blocks from the house I grew up in, engine running every 20 minutes, just to keep the heat alive. Outside it was 31 degrees and completely silent, the kind of quiet that only happens on Christmas night, when every normal family in the world is inside, warm together. I wasn't inside. I was sitting in a 2009 Honda Civic, with a garbage bag of clothes in the back seat, and my phone at 4% battery, and I kept staring at the end of my street, at the faint glow of the Christmas lights, still wrapped around our front porch, wondering if my mother diary was going to come out. She didn't come out. Nobody came out. And somewhere between midnight and 2 in the morning, I stopped watching the lights and just sat there and in the dark. 19 years old. Nowhere to go. Christmas night. That was the night I understood completely, finally, that I was on my own. What I didn't know yet was that my grandfather had already made sure I was going to be okay. Let me back up, because the night itself won't make sense without the people who created it. My father, Richard, ran a small construction company outside Columbus, Ohio. Decent money, big presence. The kind of man who shook hands too hard and always needed the last word in every room he walked into. He didn't raise me so much as audit me, constantly measuring whether I was becoming the version of a son he'd decided he wanted, and consistently disappointed that I wasn't. My mother, Diane, was his echo. Whatever Richard decided, Diane validated. I spent years waiting for her to push back. Just once, on my behalf. She never did. She called it being supportive. I eventually stopped calling it anything. I was their only child, and by the time I was 13, I already understood in that quiet way kids understand things. They can't yet put into words that I was more inconvenient than son, a project they'd lost enthusiasm for, somewhere around the time I stopped being small and agreeable. My grandfather was everything they weren't. Grandpa Lou, my mom's father, was a retired electrician who lived alone in a small house in Dayton. After my grandmother passed, quiet man, careful with his words. Every time I visited him, he'd make a pot of coffee, sit across from me at his kitchen table, and actually listen. Not nod and scroll. Actually listen, the way people used to, before everyone got a phone in their hand. He had a saying I never forgot. He'd look at me over his coffee cup and say, "Daniel, the truth always finds a way out. You just gotta give it time." I nodded every time he said it. I didn't fully understand it until much later. Grandpa Lou passed away in October, 2 months before that Christmas. Heart attack in his sleep. The doctors said, peaceful. I stood at his funeral and cried harder than I had cried about anything in my entire life. My parents stood next to me, looking like they had somewhere else to be. That should have told me everything. After the funeral, the family attorney mentioned there was a will. My parents exchanged a look. Brief, subtle, the kind of look that means something has already been discussed. They nodded like it was all routine. I didn't think much of it. Grandpa Lou didn't have a lot. Small house, old truck, some savings. I assumed whatever he had and went to my mom. I went back to my life. Community college part-time, hardware store full-time, still living at home, because Columbus rent wasn't friendly to someone clearing $14 an hour. And home got darker fast, and after that funeral, my dad started in with comments at dinner, small things first. When I was your age, I was already supporting myself. Then less small. You're a burden, Daniel. That's just the truth. Then, one night in early December, flat and final. This isn't your home anymore. January 1st, you find somewhere else. My mom cleared the plates. I paid them $200 a month. Every month. Basically my entire paycheck. After gas and groceries. It was never mentioned. It was never enough. I started calling around. Asked a coworker if I could crash on his couch. After New Year's. He said probably. I thought I had time. I didn't have time. Christmas Eve dinner was quiet. Ham, football, dishes. I washed up on and went to my room. Around 9 o'clock, I heard them in the kitchen. Low voices. I almost ignored it. Then I heard my name. I stood in the hallway and listened. My dad was talking about paperwork, about the will, about a timeline. And then he said, clear enough that I caught it every word. The kid can't find out until it's too late to do anything about it. Something cold moved through my chest. I walked into the kitchen. The conversation stopped, like I'd cut a wire. My dad looked at me, the way he always looked at me, when I'd crossed some line I hadn't known existed. Jaw tight, eyes flat, I asked what they were talking about. I should not have asked. What came next was 10 minutes. I will never fully be able to describe. My dad unloaded everything, every complaint he'd been stacking for months. And it came out loud and fast and ugly. Ungrateful, lazy, eavesdropping like a child. My mother stood at the refrigerator, arms crossed and eyes on the floor. Then he pointed at the front door. I still thought it was venting. I thought it would peak and pass, the way it always did. He walked to my room, pulled a garbage bag from under the sink, and started filling it with my clothes. Methodical, efficient, like he'd been planning it. My mother appeared in the hallway behind me. I turned to look at her, and for 1 second, I thought she was going to say something. Step in, be my mother. She looked at the floor. The front door closed behind me at 9:47 p.m. I sat on the porch steps for 50 minutes. 50 minutes in 31-degree air, watching my breath, waiting for a light to turn on somewhere inside, waiting for footsteps, waiting for the latch. Nothing moved. I'm inside that house. Eventually, I picked up the garbage bag and walked to my car. I drove 2 blocks and parked. I don't know why I didn't drive further. Maybe some part of me still thought someone would come. I sat there, heat running in 10-minute bursts to save gas, watching that faint glow of Christmas lights at the end of the street, and I tried to make sense of what had just happened. I couldn't make sense of it. What I kept coming back to was that line. The kid can't find out until it's too late. Too late for what? Find out what? I turned it over and over in my mind, until the words stopped meaning anything. Around 2 in the morning, I stopped trying to figure it out. I reclined the seat, as far as it would go, pulled my jacket over my shoulders, and closed my eyes. I didn't really sleep, but I stopped and waiting. That was Christmas. 3 days later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Gerald Foss, attorney. He said he'd been trying to reach me, and that he had something my grandfather had left, specifically for me, separate from the main estate. He asked if I could come to his office. I drove over that afternoon, in the same clothes I'd been wearing for 2 days. Mr. Foss was a small, careful man. Neat desk, reading glasses. He didn't waste words. He slid a manila envelope and across the desk, and told me my grandfather had left specific instructions. This envelope was to be hand-delivered and to me, directly, no sooner than 60 days after his passing, and under no circumstances was it to be shared with and or discussed with any other family member. I looked at the envelope. My name was on the front. Grandpa Lou's handwriting, the same handwriting which from every birthday card I'd ever gotten from him since I was 5 years old. I opened it slowly. Inside was a single white card, simple, plain front, and inside, in his careful, deliberate print, Daniel, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you're finally old enough to know the truth. The house is yours. Has been, since 2019. Your parents tried to talk me out of it, for years. Every year, a new reason. I said no, every time. The deed is in this envelope. It's been recorded. It's legal. It's done. Don't let them tell you otherwise. I love you, son. Grandpa Lou. I read it once. Then I read it again. Then I set it down on Mr. Foss's desk and just sat there for a moment, with my hands flat and on my knees. Behind the card was a property deed. Grandpa Lou's house in Dayton. transferred to my name, legally recorded in 2019, 3 years before he passed, done when I was 16 years old, and had no idea. Mr. Foss then told me something that locked everything into place. My parents had contacted him within 2 weeks of the funeral. They told him I was young, emotionally unstable, not capable of managing property on my own. They suggested strongly that the estate be managed by them, on my behalf, until further notice. They asked him to delay reaching out to me, and implied they expected to be kept informed of all proceedings. Mr. Foss declined in every part of that conversation. He said Grandpa Lou's instructions had been written specifically to prevent exactly this kind of interference, and that my grandfather had clearly anticipated it years in advance. The kid can't find out until it's too late. They hadn't been hiding news from me. They'd been trying to get ahead of it, control the timeline, keep me desperate and destabilized, long enough to manipulate me when the moment came. They threw me out on Christmas Eve to break me down, make me easier to manage. It hadn't worked, because Grandpa Lou had been 3 steps ahead of them. For years, I didn't call my parents that day. I drove to Dayton. Grandpa Lou's house was exactly how I remembered it. Small, clean, the smell of old wood and coffee. His mug was still on the kitchen table. I sat down in his chair, at his table, in the house that had been mine, for 3 years and without my knowing it, and I stayed there until it got dark outside. I moved in the following week, got a job at an electrical supply company. Felt right, given who taught me what an honest day's work looked like. Started night classes, paid my own bills and with my own money, in my own house, rebuilt and slowly while I went on my own terms. My dad reached out in February. Short message. Said we needed to discuss my family matters. My mom sent a longer one. Said she missed me. Said things got out of hand. Said she hoped I was doing okay. I read both messages carefully. Took 2 days. Then replied to each of them with the same words. I'm doing fine. I don't think we have anything left and to discuss. They didn't respond. I didn't follow up. I think about Grandpa Lou every morning when I make coffee at that table, his table, my table now, and I think about what it must have taken, the foresight, the patience, the quiet love, for him to set all of that in motion, years before he was gone, to make sure that no matter what they did, no matter how far they pushed me down, I would land somewhere safe. He knew who they were. He knew long before I did. And he made sure the truth had somewhere to go. The truth always finds a way out. You just gotta give it time. I've got time, Grandpa. I've got nothing but time now. If this one hit you, you know what to do. Drop it in the comments. And if you've ever been made to feel like a stranger might in your own family, I see you.